Okay, it's been a while since I was able to do a video, and I've got okay. So there's a whole bunch of stuff I need to cover today, and I'm gonna try to do it in two videos rather than one. And the first two that I need to review are obviously my books that I read these past 2 weeks. I think past 2 weeks. And I'll start off with this one, and this is Here and Now by Santa Montefiore, and it is, as you can see, a very lovely cover, and the book is just as lovely. So this book, when I grabbed it said in the blurb like what it kind of entails, and obviously it was going to be about like this bubbly personality of Marigold, and how Marigold has lived a very fulfilling life. She's 66 now, but towards the end of her life, she's starting to become a little forgetful. And while everyone is in her life is kind of saying, you know what, it's normal, people get old, people forget things, it wasn't the same for Marigold. She was experiencing the symptoms of early onset dementia, and little by little, she kind of forgot the things that are kind of important to her. Like she missed a few big events from her daughter's life. She missed appointments. She forgot the people in her life. And this book would have been exceptionally sad had it not been for the characters, because they're so lovely, they're so warm, they're very. Her husband Dennis was just a beautiful human being. He was supportive, he was caring, he showed her warmth and love. And this wasn't just during the time that she had dementia. Her married life was full of love because of what she shared with Dennis. And I think that made the book extremely different. Like if that love aspect wasn't there in her life from the person she's closest to, I think that the book would have been a lot worse. And she's got two supportive daughters. Like one is the younger one, who Suze has to step up. She has to come out of her baby shell, and she has to grow into the role of, now I am also going to be a person that has to support my mother. And then you've got the older daughter, and she kind of like, she really like, I don't know how to put it, because she's been prioritizing herself for a while, and she kind of came back after heartbreak, and she was suddenly thrown into this life where her mother had also like started to decline, and she was now taking care of her mother, her father, her sister, and her grandmother as well. And the whole time, like, Daisy found her true love, the one that she wants to settle down with, and she now has to compromise between her family and the family she was born into and the family she's going to have. But this whole book is just full of love. It's everywhere, like in the community, and how they all treat Marigold, how they treat each other. There's a lot of respect for each other. There's a lot of warmth that's able to be passed around in this community. And if it wasn't, like, as I said, if it wasn't for that factor, this book would be very different. It's an exceptionally sad story as you progress along, because obviously as she ages, her dementia gets worse, and the first stages of forgetfulness is going to be like the friends that she met later on in life. It's going to be her kids. She eventually forgot her kids, and then obviously at one point, at the very last page, which was the saddest part, was she forgot the man that she loved for the last 40 years. So I think at that point is when Dennis slowly crumbled, when he was like, why am I even doing this? Why am I putting myself through this for a person that no longer remembers who I am, what I mean to this person, the things that I am doing for this person? And he ended up with the thought of, you know what, it's fine if she doesn't remember, I remember, and she might not love me, but that's enough. That's okay, because I have enough love for the both of us. And this book was not just about one person, it was about many. And that's why I think it was, despite like it saying it to have some tissues handy in the black back, it's very warm, so it's easy to understand why it's a wholesome book as opposed to a sad book. And it kind of warms your soul because you don't find other factors in your life to be as gratifying when you're going through something that difficult as dementia. You kind of live in your own bubble, you forget who you are, you forget how to do things, you forget the basics. But when you have people around you that are constantly supporting you, that care for you, that understand you, that allow you to be vulnerable in those kinds of situations, really changes the perspective that you have on any kind of illness, because you know you're taken care of. And that's why, like, I didn't get too sad about this book and even how it progressed. Like, there were moments when you're like, that one's a bit intense. But when you see that she's surrounded by a whole bunch of love, your perspective very quickly changes. And this is probably one of my favorite books that I've read so far, and I definitely recommend it for anyone that's a fan of community, a fan of like wholesome growth, character development, and just a slice of life. Yeah, a slice of life. So this is Santa Montefiore's Here and Now, and this is probably my top 2 books that I've read so far, after Kristen Hanna's A Nightingale, of course. Right, so now that that one is out of the way, that brings me to my next book, which I read before I got paid, and that would be... This is, obviously this is the second installment of the Twilight Saga, and it's New Moon, and of course everyone knows that this is Rob Pat's favorite sequel to the movie, because this has the least amount of screen time for him, and which also makes it one of my, like, it's not one of my least favorite. I think Eclipse is my least favorite Twilight movie book, just in general, but this is probably like second after that. Anyway, back to the book. So when I read Twilight, I realized that Bella was a very lively person. Inside her head, she's got like a whole, like, all these thoughts racing in her mind 24/7. She's very funny, she's got character, she's got personality, she's bubbly. And then you read New Moon and she's just a lunatic. And I get it. For anyone that's gone through like real, true heartbreak and the loss of someone that's been your center of like everything, and you're basically, this is the one. You've lost a part of yourself, you've lost a whole. So I get it. I get where she's coming from. What I don't get is her coping mechanisms as an 18-year-old. And I want to know how Stephenie Meyer actually came up with this, because as an 18-year-old, to be able to like go and hang out with the opposite gender for so long. I'm obviously brown, so I'm from a conservative side of the like whatever. I would not be allowed to go and spend hours and hours and hours at a boy's house alone, despite parental supervision or not. I would not be allowed to. So to go and spend that much time alone, and this girl, obviously not in her right mind, has come up with the idea of doing dangerous things to have hallucinations. She's now putting herself in dangerous situations so she can hallucinate Edward. To be fair, Edward is very beautiful, so I'm not judging too much on that. But also, what the hell? Girl, there's other things you can do in life. You don't have to try to kill yourself all the time. Obviously not, that's not what she was doing. But so we come to the point where finally she's found a bit of peace, if that's the only thing like she can find right now without Edward. She's found a bit of peace in her life with Jacob, and she's really milking it out. Like, she knows what she's doing is wrong, she knows, and he knows what she's doing. So I don't think that's very unfair, because if she was doing it and she didn't set direct clear boundaries, then I would have something to say. But he knew very well, like, you are kind of a placeholder even though you cannot take Edward's place. But overall, like, she became a little unhinged in this, and you can really say, like, tell that she was obsessed. I don't know if she was more obsessed with becoming a vampire, or she was more obsessed with the fact that she wanted Edward, because she was all for leaving her own family. She was 100% ready to leave Renee and, well, I mean, everyone can understand wanting to leave Renee, her non-showing up mother. But Charlie, I don't think you want to leave. Like, why would you leave him, you know? Her dad. But no. So she was so ready to leave them to start her new life, her future life with the Cullens, despite her current family being alive and well. So really makes me question what she wanted more. Was she after immortality, or was she after Edward? Could be one or the other. But when you've seen the full Twilight Saga, obviously it kind of makes sense that she was born to be immortal. She was born to be a vampire, because she handled it so much better than when she would have, like, when she was as a human. So I think probably that's where it was leading. But at the same time, like, I wish there was a little bit of more confidence. I know she was an 18-year-old in the book and it's fiction, but I wish a little bit more confidence was presented to Bella by the author, because as an 18-year-old girl that would have been reading this, to view themselves so negatively, to be like, I'm plain, I'm ordinary, I'm nothing compared to the person next to me, that's very disappointing, because that's kind of shapes a whole generation of girls. And I think it's important to be like, I might not be a vampire, I might not have, like, you know, super speed, super hearing, but to feel like you're good enough to stand next to the person you're dating. And I think that would have been a lot better. And I think it would have been important to include a bit more friendship, like the friendship aspect of these books as well, because I know how important it is. But yeah, so that is my review of New Moon. Bella's lunatic in the second book. She was fine in the first book. I'm going to see what I find in my third book. But yeah, so this is New Moon, obviously by the one and only Stephenie Meyer. And yeah, would I recommend it to anyone who's like matured enough to understand this is a comedy? And like, you can judge it, like it's very easy to judge this book, but you have to take it with a grain of salt. You can't take this book seriously. Twilight, you could take it a bit more seriously. I wouldn't take this one that seriously. She's trying to kill herself. So those are my 2 reviews for this week. That is Santa Montefiore is Here and Now, and Twilight Saga's New Moon by Stephenie Meyer. My next video is going to be the 2 books I bought for the remainder of September, and that will be in the next video, so stay tuned.